Hey, 1:46 p.m., 8/11/2017. I'm sorry if you might have to turn down your speakers. I didn't adjust mine this time. So, sorry about that. But this whole thing here, this lawyer connected to DNC fraud found suicided, no gun found. How could that happen? Huh? People don't shoot themselves dead then get up and hide the gun, do they? Or give it away for someone for a keepsake? No. This whole thing reminds me of my stepdaughter. You know, where our house should have been taped off with this crime scene tape, you know, that's my take on it. That's the way I was brought up to believe things work. I guess blame it on bad parenting. Blame it up on the shoddy upbringing. But this should have been, at least, surrounding our steps out front from banister to banister. You know? Instead, we had a version of the same yellow tape with writing. I don't remember what it's, I think it was just caution tape. It said caution. Because we had been taking those bricks up, and we're going to replace it. I mentioned before, we bought a form, a concrete form, that made cobblestone, and we're going to cobblestone from the alley by our house where it came up on onto the sidewalk all the way down to 2nd Street and around on 2nd Street as far back as our property went. It was quite a little project we had gotten started, but it got interrupted. But we had, like I said, the caution tape. So I just imagine, since they won't give me any direct answers or even a clue, probably because they don't have one themselves, but who am I to say, right? That Maria just looked at it and thought, well, that'll do. Someone will think that someone else from someone else's department, from another department, was here before we got here, and what you see there, the caution tape, is a remnant of that visit. So she did nothing. Nothing. I'm offended. I'm more offended than what these videos would ever say. Okay? This left me basically on my own. I referred to it before as being left to the wolves. Alright? My son was spending the greater amount of his time at my parents' house across town. There I was in this pretty rough neighborhood, sitting duck. No thought whatsoever of my well-being, of my safety, of anything. And all those visits at family services convinced someone along the line that needed to happen, that were desperately needed, stopped. They stopped cold. What does that tell you? Not even so much as a paper to say, we're finished here. You can carry on now. You can try to continue with your life. Your life as it was before we got our dirty little fingers prodding around in it. Do you see? So the way that this also reminds me of the stepchild is, I don't know what I was looking at, or watching. Her presence is evident to me because her story says I'm not there. So with that story, I'm removed from the picture of what was between 93 and 95. It gets kind of, how can I say, grainy. It's gray matter. She wanted to treat me like I was invisible, so managed to do that, cloaking me with a lie. All right. And I happen to think this morning part of that might be because she just really wanted those 60 people or so at that commune to reduce me to a bloody pulp. Her hate for me is still that bad. So imagine that kind of hate, wanting to reduce someone to a bloody pulp. 2+ counties away from her now, and I can still feel the hate. Imagine what it was when we were in the same room together, in the same vehicle, at the same dining table, in the same front room, watching the same TV. Do you see now why John and I would just get up and say, we're going to go shop and see you later, and leave her there? Half of that time of the 2 years, or thereabouts, she was with her older brother, who does happen to have more than 2 brain cells. A lot more than 2 brain cells. He's been serving in the U.S. Navy for 23+ years, or was. He might be out now. My son is the one with the contact with him, or his family. Okay? I've spoken with his wife a couple of times via my son Bradley. Because if it weren't for Bradley, I wouldn't have even gotten to talk to his wife. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So, that hate like that anyway is hard on the person who possesses the hate. But then you go and try to give it to other people, and do give it to other people. And it's sick. It makes a person feel sick. It's sickening. Okay? It's not healthy. It's one of those things people do anyway, despite warnings of it. Like, don't drink water from the ocean. You don't drink it. You'll go nuts. But of course there are these ones who want to challenge that, and they drink it anyway. You know, like if they're shipwrecked and they're dying of thirst, don't drink that, don't drink that. Why? It's water, I'm thirsty. Because you'll go nuts. Or I'll die. Or you'll go nuts and then you'll die anyway, so don't drink it. She's the type that's going to hate regardless of who it eats up, even if it's herself. But the rest of us have to cope with that. And today, it was like, you're why my mom hasn't had anything worth having for the past X number of years, since 1985. You're why. She skips number 2, wife Nancy, entirely. I've never heard it say, you know, it's all Nancy's fault that my mother never had anything worth having, because Nancy got it all, and her daughter. I've never ever gotten that impression even, let alone never heard it come out of her mouth. But it's all your fault that my mother never had anything. Can you imagine? It's even hard for me to imagine to be that stupid to think that that's how it works. That's not how it works. Your mother had money. Your mother doesn't come from total, whacked out, in their head crazies, lunatics, losers. Those were people that were preachers and missionaries, and maybe they didn't have a lot, but it was something worth having. Okay? They weren't in the poorhouse, in other words. They had their homes paid for. They had their vehicles paid for. They had their furniture paid for. It didn't come from Rent-A-Center. Well, maybe some of it did, but you know what I mean. Okay? She's taking this to the extreme to say, you're the entire whole of the reason why my mother is dirt poor and raggedy-assed. You. Although, on that website of that communes, they tell the prospective members straight out, you will be expected to give over, not in so many words, I don't even have it open, to give over the greater part of your wealth or possessions, if not all, to live here with us, work like a slave, 30 hours in the off season, 60 hours in the harvest seasons, to live in what the area around it knows as hog houses out back of some other structure where Livingston was said to live, which does have electricity, which does have blah, blah, blah. And I read a comment from someone suggesting that he wouldn't be caught dead living out there and all that crap. Not in so many words again, but you get my meaning. So she wants to blame this all on me. My mother, who gives up the greater part, if not all, of her wealth and her possessions for the right to live on this commune with these stinky, stupid, brainwashed people, has nothing because of you. So why does she give it up to him? Why did she do that? Why didn't she say, no thank you, I don't think I'll treat my children that way and give everything I own away, so they will someday have nothing and end up blaming it on people they don't even know or care about? It sounds like a huge racket to me, and it always did. And my husband thought it was a big racket too, and he didn't want involved. And yes, he fought paying that child support because we knew it goes to Livingston. And he's got sons, or at least one son. And they buy that property up there, and once people wander off,